so much for having me here. And yes, it is Lauren Weaver. Everyone does call me Lauren until they see the spelling of my name. It's L-A-R-Y-N, and then they don't remember which one is correct. So you can call me whatever. I was here a couple of years ago when I was new to the organization. Was anybody here heard of us before? No? Okay, you were. Are you familiar with the Parkinson Society? A little bit? Some? Okay. I'm going to give just kind of a brief history about it. And most of my PowerPoint is pictures because I think that's a much better way to kind of show what we're about because it's really a member-focused organization. Some of the most important things I share with people first are that we are 100% local. We're not a national affiliate, and everyone kind of assumes we function the same way as maybe the Alzheimer's Association that has a parent company and then chapters. Parkinson's doesn't work that way. There's all these grassroots efforts that kind of pop up on an as-needed basis. So this one popped up in the early 2000s just as a social group. Somebody with Parkinson's meeting, trying to find somebody else with Parkinson's to talk about it. And that's really what our beginnings were. It was founded officially as a 501c3 in 2012. And our two co-founders, one is Patrick Sullivan, a longtime caregiver of his wife who passed away last summer, lived with Parkinson's for 25 years. And Stan Smith, who was diagnosed at 50 and is now 71, still very involved and very engaged with the organization and with lots of other things in the community. So those two men founded the organization as a way to be a support and an education. So we're not medical, we're not research, we're not trying to cure. My background is absolutely not medical. My background is business development, and that's why they brought me on in 2016, because with a lot of nonprofits, you have this great passion to serve a purpose or a cause and not a lot of business acumen behind it. And so when I came in, there was staff of one, and I worked out of my car. I think that's about where I was last time I was here. We started about 300 people. So in the last 3 years, we now serve 1,500 members, and we have 4 full-time staff. We actually have an office place. So all that's been very exciting. It's been a very busy couple of years. That's not necessarily a good thing, because there's a lot of people in Greenville County and in the upstate with Parkinson's. Estimated 12,000 people. And they're diagnosing 8 to 10 people a week just between Prisma Health and Bon Secours. We're in their clinics once a month, and just between those two, no other neurologists, no other places, 8 to 10 new diagnosed every single week. It's the fastest growing neurological progressive disease out there. And everyone asks, why? I think there's a couple reasons for that. One is people are actually getting the diagnosis. The symptoms are so innocuous at the beginning. It basically just, people say, oh, you're getting older. You're slowing down. But actually, they've probably had Parkinson's for 5, 10, 15 years. So people are becoming more aware of those early onset symptoms. So that's part of the increase in diagnoses. The other piece, I think, is much more because our world's becoming more and more toxic, and it's a neurotoxic disease. And so the combination of the toxicity in our world, we have people with Agent Orange, or people who lived by a farm for 30 years and drank well water. We have a couple that the husband and wife both got it without any genetic predisposition in their family. So they don't know what causes it specifically. The other important point that I share is that you don't die from Parkinson's disease. You die with it, which means 10, 15, 20, 25 years, you can be living with this disease, which creates the disability aspects. Like, they still are working, they still are involved in the community, they still want, and yet so little is understood about it. People are afraid to tell their bosses that they have it because of what that might mean. And so the impact that it has on our entire population can be significant. It's not a senior disease. While the majority of people are seniors, we have members in their 30s. They really don't want to tell anybody. They have small children. They have 30 more years of working, hopefully. And so our role in organization is to come alongside those people and walk with them. We're not trying to cure them because there isn't one, and it isn't trying to help them to die well, it's helping them live well. So that's really the kind of the crux of why we exist. That's the first part. So offering support, education, and advocacy to both the person with Parkinson's and their care partner or spouse, because it does impact the whole family. And then the other piece is growing awareness. Most of the time when I ask anybody, how much do you know about Parkinson's disease? Most people say, Michael J. Fox has that, right? And then that's pretty much the extent of the general population. That was me 4 years ago. So if you don't know a lot about it, you don't really, it doesn't come to mind. But if I were to say to you, okay, we're at a party, we meet and we start having a conversation and say, oh, doesn't this food smell wonderful? And you say, oh, I lost my sense of smell years ago. And then we talk a little bit longer and I ask you, oh, can you write that out for me? You know what, my handwriting is so small I can barely read it. Why don't you write it out? Immediately I am now thinking, do you have any other things that are going on? Have you seen a neurologist? 4 years ago, I never would have thought that. So, oh, they lost their sense of smell and their handwriting's small. Those are two of the early onset symptoms of Parkinson's. Most of our members haven't smelled anything in years and never thought anything about it, thought it was something else. So those are just a couple of the things to look for. And we talk to a lot of therapists because we've had people who go to a therapist for a knee replacement. And it's the therapist that says, have you seen a neurologist? Because they're watching their gait and they're watching their balance. And they're noticing that there's a need for them to see if they have Parkinson's. So I think that's also accounting for the increase in diagnoses, is that people are becoming more and more aware of those symptoms and what they look like. So I'm going to show you a couple of what we do so that you can have an idea of what's available. This is kind of a broad script. We're going to go through each of them. The biggest thing that we have learned in the last 20 years is that exercise is the only thing that really is going to make a difference in your quality of life. We are using the same medication that they were starting to use in 1970. 1970, same medication. Now they've enhanced it and they've added extenders and they've done that. But it's carbidopa, levodopa, it's the same medication they've been using. If you had gotten a diagnosis in 1970, they would give you the medication and tell you to go home and rest. As soon as you stop moving, you're not going to be able to start moving. All of your joints are locking up. And so the goal is to keep moving. And once people do start exercising, they've noticed a decrease in their symptoms. They have less tremors. Their balance is greater. They're stronger. Their mental clarity is better. So we focus a lot on getting people to move. The challenge with that is they don't want to. I'm relatively healthy and I don't want to exercise every day. I can't imagine feeling the way they feel in the morning and not wanting to exercise. The difference is I'm fortunate enough that I get to choose not to and still be able to function. If you have Parkinson's and you choose not to exercise, your quality of life is going to drastically be reduced. So you'll see a lot of pictures of the exercise. This is our signature exercise program. It's called Gaps in Motion. One of our members is a Russian ballet dancer. He was diagnosed at 48. He was on Broadway for 15 years. He started this program for himself. He didn't call it Gaps in Motion, it was just his exercise routine. But as a dancer, so familiar with your body and the muscles and what you need to do and how to move muscles I don't even realize I have. It's really him. Plus, what he knows he needs to do to function with Parkinson's. So he created this program that takes those two pieces and puts them together. And the best part about that is, so he was diagnosed at 48. He's now 61. He moved back to New York because his new wife was working at MIT and they're expecting their first child in February. So people say, can you live well with Parkinson's? He's my poster child. He's had this for 13 years and he seems to be doing well. He says it's because of diet and exercise. But and he is on the medication, but he's only on one, and he's only on the smallest dose, which is very unlike most of our members. The other thing about this is we ask the caregivers and spouses to join them. Just because you don't have Parkinson's doesn't mean you probably shouldn't be moving also. So we get everybody to come, and you can, as you can see, there's different levels. There's people who sit, people who lay down, who can't sit, who can't get up and do the motions, and he designed it that way so that no matter what level you are, there's something you can be doing that's going to help your mobility. Another program that we have, it's called Gaps Connect. It started out as a newly diagnosed retreat day. So you go to your neurologist and they say you have Parkinson's and your first thought is, I don't even know what that means. So we go home and start Googling, and now we're more scared than we were before we got the diagnosis. So we started this specifically to work with people who have gotten that new diagnosis, but also we changed the name to Connect because, as you know, we have so many people moving to Greenville. So we have people relocating here that may have been diagnosed 10 years ago, but they don't know the resources that are available. And so what we do here is we introduce them to anything in the area that is helping people with Parkinson's. So different therapies, both of the hospital systems, introduce them to the different exercise programs, the Rocksteady Boxing, give them a chance to be in a support group. What does that look like? Just so they know what's available. The best part about this, people come to this, that deer in the headlights kind of look. It's from 10 to 3 every other month on a Saturday. And when they leave at 3 o'clock, they're exchanging phone numbers with the people in the room. There's, okay, I think I might be able to do this. There's people who've been living with this for 15 years. I have a little bit of hope. This isn't a death sentence. This is a new normal, and I need to learn how to function in that new normal, but there's resources here that can help me. So it's one of my favorite programs, and we make them move at every program they come to, even if it's a non-moving program. The biggest joke with that is we have our lunch and learns. We have 200 people who come. We get everybody seated, we get everybody lunch, and the fire alarm went off. We had to get everybody up, everybody out of the building. It's like, well, that's our gaps in motion for today. That was your exercise program. We didn't even have the speaker, because by the time we got 200 people, wheelchairs and everything out of the building, it's like, okay, just go. This is something I would love to invite all of you to come to. We have 2 of these every month, one in Spartanburg and one here in Greenville. It's the Gap Social. It started out as a support group for early onsets. Because if you're 85 and you have Parkinson's and you go to our support groups, well, then you have a 32-year-old who comes. That's not exactly peer support. You're dealing with very different things. So this is at the Bon Secours Arena, and we have a bar and hors d'oeuvres, and it's more of a mixer. It was still very hard to get the young onsets to come because nobody wants to admit that they have Parkinson's. So what it morphed into is a Parkinson's networking group. We have our volunteers, our board members, a lot of our members come, and a lot of our community partners come. So it is a conversation about all things going on around the upstate that is helping this population to live that better quality of life, and they get connected. My favorite part is you don't have a name tag that says, I'm a PWP, person with Parkinson's, I'm a caregiver, I'm a board member. So some of these young onsets come because they don't have to tell anybody that they're the ones with Parkinson's. They can just come and have conversations and be a little bit more surreptitious about it. And so there's a dignity that comes with that we're all in the same boat. It's not you're the patient and I'm the doctor. It's just we're all in this, kind of on this journey together. So it's an hour and a half. The next one, Spartanburg one's the 21st, and the Greenville one is the 28th. And it's from 5:30 to 7, so kind of just the end of the workday. This is Stan, I mentioned, one of the co-founders, the one that has Parkinson's. He comes every time, and they don't usually do evenings well. People with Parkinson's, by the time it gets dark out, they're done. But he comes every month because he thinks he should. This was the lunch and learn we moved, right? This is the group of people we had to get out for the fire drill. We have these 4 times a year, and try to bring in speakers that are the topics that are most broadly asked for. What's new in medication, what's new in therapies, mindfulness, reducing your stress. There's 4 things you need to know if you have Parkinson's. You need to reduce your stress, drink more water, exercise every day, and watch your nutrition. Now, you'd say we should all be doing that, but again, they have to be doing that. And so we bring in speakers that kind of focus on those 4 things. We partnered with all of the YMCAs. They have it's called Pedaling for Parkinson's. A lot of their incumbent bikes sat empty all afternoon. There wasn't anybody using them. And so they had all of their trainers certified in POWER, which is Parkinson's Wellness Recovery. It's an exercise program specifically for Parkinson's. So we feel safe sending our members there because we know there's people there who are trained specifically to work with people with Parkinson's, not just hey, get on the bike. So all of the Ys, and the one in Anderson has just started one, and the one in Spartanburg wants to begin it as well. This is GAPS Recharge. It's a respite care. The caregivers, as many of you probably already know, end up in the hospital because they're so exhausted from caring for the person who's ill. And so then the person getting cared for becomes the caregiver of their spouse. Respite care, there wasn't anything available. You could go to all-day adult daycare, but not everybody with Parkinson's has mental issues. There's not necessarily dementia. So they may have a lot of physical limitations, but they're very sharp, and they don't want to sit in a room all day. They want to be engaged. So we started this program where they do art therapy, music therapy, they play chess, they play checker, they play lawn darts. I'd like to see that, but they do. And they've become their own little clique. It's every Wednesday, and the spouses get 3 hours. They drop them off at 10, they pick them up at 1, and it's completely free. Every program with GAPS is completely free. I'd love to be able to continue to do that as long as possible. All of our funding is local. All of our money that we raise is from here. We have no federal grants, we have no state grants. It's the generosity of businesses and individuals in the community that are supporting all these programs. And for me, the members are already paying all these new doctor's bills and all these new therapy that they aren't necessarily covered, and if they're not seniors, they don't have Medicare either. So they're paying out of pocket for a lot of that. They shouldn't have to pay out of pocket for service. So yeah, they're doing, and we have volunteers who come in, they're trained by our therapists just to help people with falls and things like that every Wednesday to do that program. We have music therapy. Now this is Steve. Steve Quam is a person with Parkinson's. He's a cyclist. He always volunteers. He comes and does this, so I'm not sure how to classify him. He kind of hits all the characteristics of how you get involved with GAPS. Yes, I have Parkinson's, but I'm here volunteering for these other people. He's a character. Have you ever heard of Rocksteady Boxing? It is a national program. It started in Indianapolis. You have to go there to get the certification. And yes, it's boxing, but you're not really hitting other people. They're not hitting each other. The bags, but it's all of the movements. It's the yelling. Your voice gets very soft with Parkinson's. And so speech therapy is very important as well. So they're yelling and they're punching, and there's an empowerment in that. They have seen dramatic results from people who do this. They do it 3 times a week, and they completely reverse their symptoms. There's now 3 in Greenville. 3 years ago, there was 1. Or in the upstate. So there's 1 in Greenville, there's 1 in Spartanburg, and there's 1 in West Union. And this is our event. We have 2 events that are a big part of our budget. Strikeout Parkinsons is every April. This year it's April 25th. It is a community event. It's a free community event. It's to grow awareness, and it's to celebrate our members. We're still here. We're still part of the community. We can still work out, we can still exercise, we can still work, we can still be part of what's going on in Greenville. The Rocksteady Boxing team was our top fundraiser last year. We had over 500 people come. We raised $87,000, and the Rocksteady Boxing team alone raised $22,000. So it's a great, they love it. Our members love it. But for me, I'd love to have more people from the community come and see what it's about and see what it is that GAPS is doing for them. This is our winning team. This is Pastor Marjorie Fleming over here. He brought his whole church. So you could score runs by getting involved with all the different activities. They had 726 runs. So they were very enthusiastic about that. Lots of volunteers that come from Furman, from USC, yes, from Clemson, earlier conversation. Anderson University, their therapy students come. And so they are a big part of what we're able to do as well. This is our second event. It's the Water Cooler Classic. It is a putt-putt tournament. We go into 50 different businesses in September and October, and they hold qualifying tournaments in their office. Then their winning foursome is invited to come to the finals that's been at Zen in years past and compete for the big trophy. It's just a huge networking event. There's over 300 people who come from all different businesses, and they play putt-putt. So it's like golf outing meets gala somewhere in the middle of that. So that is GAPS in a nutshell. We have 2 new programs we started this year. One is one-to-one mentoring. People who get the diagnosis and don't want to go to a support group, they just want someone they can call. So we've got members who would love to be that person to give the hope and encouragement to new people. And the second is a coffee talk, which is a monthly, smaller educational group on the different topics, whether it's home health versus home care, what's the difference between Medicare and Medicaid, and who pays for what, and what happens with assisted living, and like all those questions that come up on a very regular basis that I don't have all the answers to. That and mindfulness, Tai Chi, how to reduce your stress. We have a drummer who's coming in to do rhythm with them. So lots of those different types of topics. So our main focus in the community is to support a very large percentage of our population that is still part of our community. They're not, they want to still be involved. I want to still be engaged. I want to be doing things. Mentally, they're still very, very viable, and so they want to continue to work. And so we try to help them do that and connect them with other resources. And then the flip side, like I said before, is just to educate so that people know that this disease is growing. The earlier that you start the treatments, the medication and the exercise, the longer you're going to extend the quality of life you have when you get that diagnosis. So people get it and they hide for 5 years. And now their new normal is that instead of here. If they started here, then they would be able to extend that longer. So that's the goal too, is if more people know about it, then they'll go out and get that diagnosis and start the treatment. So I know lots of stuff and really fast, but does anybody have any questions about anything?
I'm wondering what kinds of volunteer options are available for those without healthcare certification, without the credentials?
Most of our volunteers don't have any kind of help. That's one of the things I stress is that we're non-medical. So if someone comes to us with a medical, the answer is always a referral to the physician. The people who come to do like the recharge program every Wednesday, you go through a certification class with our therapist just so that you're aware of if you see someone freeze, because that's something they can't move. They can't get their legs to keep walking. What do you do? So there's things like that. So you go through that certification in order to volunteer for that. We have people who teach the gaps in motion class that are trained in that. The recharge is something we really need more volunteers for because that program is growing with the more people who want the respite care. Certainly the events, both the Water Cooler Classic and the Strikeout, are run by volunteers. And so we rely on a lot of community people to come and help us to put those large events on. And we have a volunteer coordinator, and I'd be happy to connect you with her and see exactly what her specific needs are. Right now, sometimes we have a lot in this area and we really need help over here. But there are, other than our 4 staff, every program we run is run by volunteers. So we have I think at this point, probably have 150 people who are working regularly on our programs.
Can this include people with essential tremors?
We have several members who don't have the Parkinson's diagnosis. Ataxia is the one that sticks in my mind. They have similar manifestation of symptoms, and so they're dealing with the same kind of things just because they don't have the label. But they come because, again, they're dealing with the same things, and if the things we're doing can help them, then absolutely. Love to have anybody that we could help be involved.
Okay.
I do have materials on the back table. We have some of our brochures. Our annual report is now a year old because it's January and the 2019 isn't out yet. But there's a little bit of information, frequently asked questions about Parkinson's, and the brochures and the cards are back there for our volunteer coordinator if you want to take one of those. So thank you.
Oh, I have one question.
Yes, sir.
So I know when we met, you were looking for space, and it seems like you've got this big old room where you're doing stuff. Where did you end up finding your space?
We lease 2 offices at the Phyllis Wheatley Center.
Okay.
And they have a dance room that we now do the gaps in motion. They just renovated that whole lower campus, and so we have some space there. We do still farm out programs too. We have all of our, we have 6 different support groups, and they're all over the upstate, so a lot of churches use that space. But our home is now at the Phyllis Wheatley, and that was intentional because we are really trying to get into the underserved communities. The national statistic says that upper middle class white men get Parkinson's more than anybody else. Now, I have a personal, and again, this is personal theory, that I just think that more upper middle class white men go to neurologists. If you're going to a free clinic, what are the chances they're going to know about those early onset symptoms of Parkinson's? Right. So we are looking for ways to get this information to more of the communities that are not hearing it from anybody else. And so being the Phyllis Wheatley community is helping us to have more of those inroads. Love to have somebody who could speak Spanish so we could, be in the Hispanic population as well. So
is the Greenville County Rec involved in Phyllis Wheatley now?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Yes, they do the summer program too.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's a collaborative of nonprofits that are on the upper campus. Eckerd, is that their
Yes.
job?
I was just there the other day.
Where are you?
Yeah.
Well, next time, stop and see me.
Yeah.
Goodwill Jobs is in there.
Okay.
Obviously, Head Start's been in there. So there's several of us that are leasing that upper campus
Right.
for office space.
Okay. Any more questions for Lauren Laren? Sorry, that's what I'm going to call you now forever.
Lauren Laren. Well, it's been a pleasure to be here again. Thanks so much, and love to have you.